Hey y'all. Yes, I'm taking Molly's line this week. I have a guest, Jason, here with me today, and we are going to talk about the pumpkin plan. We spent months doing this in the C Chats Book Club and implementing different things, and it was just so business changing that we wanted to tell you about it and talk about it and let you know why we think you should read it. I think it has applications in all fields of life. And all right, let's just get right into it. You can watch, before I say that, you can watch Jason's episode if you want to see his business and what he does. It's absolutely fascinating. So I will link up his episode where we went and toured his warehouse and got into what he does. So definitely go watch that as well. So that's your introduction, Jason. Does that suffice?
Oh, that works. Yeah. Thank you so much. And, it's interesting, like some of the other books that we've covered in book club, I had read this book myself, but read it very passively, almost as if you were watching a movie and it was entertainment. But not until we'd gotten to the book club did I really digest it and make some changes. So this was very helpful to my business.
Yeah. And I think that one of the tenets of book club is really action, right? We do action-based things we can implement. And when we do things, we'll meet. For those of you that aren't members of the book club, go ahead, join. It'll be in the show notes, linked up. But it's very action oriented. So we read a couple of chapters, we get together, we kind of talk about those chapters and how we might implement them and our thoughts on it. And what that does, as opposed to just reading a book, like Jason said, is amazing. When you stop, you can chat with somebody about it. You can bounce ideas off one another. It really reinforces all that. And I think we probably get a lot more out of it than just reading it on our own. I felt that way.
Yeah, we kind of this is an overused term, I think, in Facebook land is mastermind. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that there's some elements of that happening within our book club. It's certainly for Pumpkin Plan, we did this, but just, coming back each week, what have you implemented? What have you figured out? What if you did this? And that was really helpful because this book especially was very challenging to for us and to other people who were in and out of the book club. And so it was very helpful to look at it that way.
Yeah, and I think let's just address that right up front. We started with a decent sized group of people. Was
Five. That was the
challenging.
highest number we had on a call. I went back and rewatched it. Uh, but by about week 3 or 4, it was down to two.
Two that were there participating. We did have people watching it and implementing it, and we'll talk a little bit about our buddy Pam, who was rewatching they're all recorded privately in our C Chats book club for you, but was implementing it alongside of us. We just didn't know because she wasn't in the discussion with us at the time, but she was there with us. And I think that speaks to a lot of how difficult this book was to take a hard look at your business. And really, one of the first things we said, and this may be why people fell off, was that we gave each other permission to call each other out on things that weren't working in our business. And do you think that scared people?
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely because a lot of us being resellers and basically
Mm-hmm.
solopreneurs, we're very vulnerable about what we're doing and how it's working and maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so we yeah, it was not a group that that it was kind of a difficult conversation, right, to have with
Mm-hmm.
strangers.
Yeah.
And you and I broke the ice, and we were fine, kind of giving each other the insightful comments, the back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was a lot of discovery there that happened in this book. And I said this in one of the episodes. I said that it seemed like this book was giving a lot of uncommon advice that I had not heard. In some of the Facebook groups, you'll hear consistently list this many a day and ASP and $20 profit and all that. There was none of that in this book. It was
Mm-hmm.
completely a different lens. That was another word we used. And yeah, so super helpful. I mean, I literally said to you earlier, we will be able to go back and look at these episodes in the book club, and it's like a time capsule. Like, where was Libby and Jason's business in the fall
Mm-hmm.
of 2022, and where did it get to? So I'm glad to have that. Hope that those will always be available in the YouTube archive,
Yep.
right?
I can't wait to do that. That was such a good suggestion. All right. So the number one thing we got out of the pumpkin plan, for me, it was, I have been, doing this business for, it's 12 years. And I'm running like a steady business, right? But I really couldn't figure out how to, let's say, get to the next level up, really, refine it, increase my profit. Like it was good and paying my bills and all of that, like no complaints, steady state across the board. But I felt like there was something more, and I was just like really struggling to figure out what I needed to level up, to really, get the most out of my business, and, serve people in a better way. And that is 1,000% what I got out of this book, was exactly how to get there. And we'll chat about that. But that was my number one takeaway. How about you?
Yeah, I would say again, going back to this uncommon advice thing, for me, it was not, it was what to eliminate from my business. And we had a lot of fun talking about these farming analogies and terms we would throw
Yeah.
around, take the vines and everything. But that was something for me that became a big deal, was like, what do I need to rip out of my pumpkin patch so that I can grow a bigger pumpkin, being my business.
Mm-hmm.
And there was and as we might get into in this conversation, I did some of that. I did some uncomfortable ripping, and one of the chapters, it talks about a tourniquet, right? So I was
Yeah.
choking off parts of my business.
Yeah.
So that was my big takeaway.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of emphasis on that, what needs to go away. So the idea is, if you haven't read the pumpkin plan, is that you want to grow the biggest pumpkin. And in order to, it makes that analogy where, you really need to focus on that one pumpkin, that one part of your business, your immutable laws, which we'll talk about, and get rid of all the extraneous things that are maybe taking your time, your profit, and really just focus in on that, and grow the biggest pumpkin, and different techniques for doing that we went into. So I'm excited to share that with people, and how we did that in our business. And that was how, that was your biggest takeaway, and mine was that was how I was going to level up, was really getting rid of a lot of those extraneous things that, for one reason or another, we were holding on to. Um,
Yeah, and sometimes we're also guilty of trying to, a little, the analogy of squirrel or something goes by, and we get,
yeah.
like, oh, let's chase that, shiny
Hmm.
object syndrome or something. And so, in doing this pumpkin plan book chat, I think that we discovered that already in our businesses, we had a bunch of squirrels running around making a mess.
Yeah.
And, we needed to kind of like clean things out and kind of just, make room for focusing on what really is going to be productive and give us benefit, and nourish that part of our business, and let
Hmm.
some of these other parts, kick them out, right? Get rid of them.
And that's painful. We and everyone in the beginning kind of struggled with that a little bit. There are different things in the book, like there are a spreadsheet you can download that, shows you the most profitable parts of your business, and like your top customers, and kind of where you rank them, and, the results of that. I mean, that was easy. That was like, you put it in, you plugged in the numbers, and you got the results, right? Like, I know, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, where my most profitable, who my most profitable consigners, customers are right now, where I should be putting my focus. It was random in my head, and the results showed me something different. So there was that tool that was absolutely amazing, that I would recommend anybody do. But the other part, the hard part of that, isn't the one that's black and white, where you plug numbers in. It's those things, that identifying those things that are not moving you toward your giant pumpkin, toward your goal, or not helping you level up. I will provide an example of, of my biggest thing that I really had a hard time letting go, was furniture. I've done furniture forever, since the beginning. It's in my logo, which turned out to be one of the reasons I was holding on to it. Clothing, furniture, and home goods. That's who I am. Well, my situation has changed, and that is no longer a profitable part of my business, and it's taking more time and energy than the other things that are making me money. And oh gosh, I didn't want to let that go. But I did. I did. It took a couple weeks and I was finally like, yes, this is the right thing. And I was very encouraged by your example because you had something that you were struggling to let go, that you were kind of hanging on to.
Yeah, lots of things. Lots of things. I'm assuming you're talking about my 3 eBay stores.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
that's what I was talking about.
oh Lord, and it was funny you mentioned logo because that's one of the things I remember us talking about. I was kind of in love with my graphics and my logos for
Mhm.
these other stores. And I won't go into the whole thing, but essentially I had 3 stores I was selling on, and I was selling the same niche. So, even just saying it out loud makes it sound silly, but I got caught up in this again, sort of like, Facebook advice of like relist, delist, sell similar.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, this will be a clever thing. I'll just relist, sell similar onto another store and it'll make it new again and people will buy it and all this. So I went through all of 2022, or I'm sorry, 2023, having multiple stores. And, when you stacked up the sales from all the stores, it looked like a good number. But in reading the pumpkin plan, finally, and it was funny the day that I said this in book club, you were like literally like gushing, like, oh, thank goodness, my friend decided to listen. Um, so at the end of 2023, I merged all those stores together. And fast forward a couple months, now I'm seeing the benefits of that. It's really working just to be back to one simplified store. And that's the pumpkin. I only have one pumpkin in my patch. All my energy, all my efforts, all my new listings is focused on that, and I'm seeing the rewards.
Yeah, I mean, those little vines, Pam sent me an image of, she said, Pam of Whimsy and such, who was watching the book club along with us and implementing it. One of her visuals that she goes to is a vine. And she sent me this video of these vines climbing from the pumpkin and wrapping themselves around other things. And she said every time she gets one of these ideas or she gets pulled in a different direction, she thinks of these vines and she goes back to the pumpkin because she sees how that is really sapping resources from her main pumpkin, from her goal where she's making the profit. And I think when you said that, it was just like, I could see like, all right, the efficiency, right? Like you don't realize like all those little things that probably went into running 3 different eBay stores.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
It
mean,
was
now
it
you
was a
can
real
see it.
problem.
Yeah.
It was a problem, and I almost feel like we should buy ourselves some sea chats overalls because I've loved all this cultivating, harvesting, pumpkin vining, analogies. Because I guess it just makes sense. It's just common sense is uncommon. So, but thanks,
Yeah.
Pam, for that analogy. I think vines is a great way to describe these ideas that other people give you or you hear in a YouTube video and you're like, oh, I should go to a bin store. I should go to estate sales and 3 states away and buy things online and have them, there's so many things out there, but you know, you got to get to where you're focused on the one thing that really is going to make your business grow. And this book helps you figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. And you're gonna have to put the work in and figure out the things that aren't working. What are those little vines for you? I mean, we talked about like our main big things, but also there were a lot of little things along the way that that I got rid of, and I know you got rid of too, that were inefficient, like little inefficiencies, little like having to stop and ask yourself, why does this feed into my where I'm going? And I'm going to hold up. There is a Venn diagram in the book. I know it looks scary, and it's a little overwhelming. However, let's talk a little bit about this. This was a tool you could use for
Yeah.
your pumpkin. Or do you think we should talk about, I feel like we should add a disclaimer here. Like when we're talking about growing that giant pumpkin, we're not talking about putting all your eggs in one basket necessarily, right? Like there
Yeah,
are
I
ways to
agree.
diversify. Like you don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket, whether that's a platform, whether that's you want to have ownership of that pumpkin. And we're not talking. I just feel like we need to like put a disclaimer in that, like, don't go all in on one thing that you don't have control over.
Well, the other thing that I would caution people is just what you've already given the advice that, you had the sort of scorecard that in one of our weeks you actually went through and ranked your consigners, and
Hmm.
another week you ranked the platforms that we
Hmm.
sell on. And so, think about the tools that would help you make these decisions. Again, not flailing around your business, grabbing onto new opportunities, and placing bets on one part of your business because you like it. Like we talked about, you enjoy live selling,
Hmm.
but you're not going to let eBay go to the side so you can become a whatnot superstar. That's
Right.
probably not the best plan. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we're talking about this. We're not saying put all your eggs in one basket. You need to figure that out so you're protected. Because I think it could be taken that way by some people, and I just want to say that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about um, growing a giant pumpkin. Although we are talking about laser focus, I'm going to say. All right, so the Venn diagram, pretty much in the middle here is your sweet spot, and they talk about the things that go into that, like who are your top clients. You can use the spreadsheet. You can easily figure that out, whether it's consigners, customers, whether you rank the platforms, figure out where your money is coming from. And the other thing was the unique offering. What do you offer that other people don't, other businesses don't? Why are people coming to you? What problem are you solving for them? Is it, quality? Is it uh, convenience? Is it trust? Is it, why are they coming to you? Whether it's a customer, consigner, there's something you have that people want if they're coming to you. And how can you most effectively offer that?
Yeah, and we went through that in our own businesses and kind of discovered it pretty quickly. I think
Hmm.
yours was more focused on the quality of service that you give your consigners,
Yeah.
and mine was a little bit more. I think I'm focused on just the breadth of items that I have in my store, maybe the convenience that
Hmm.
people in my niche would be able to find something for me. So I think each of us, people who are watching this or need to follow, the tips in the book, look at that about what can you do that's an advantage to your competition. It could be price. Maybe if you can get things impossibly cheap, price can be your advantage. But I'm not
Hmm.
sure that's a long-term thing that can be sustained. So look at other opportunities.
Yeah. And one of the things in this is like quality. Okay, so I say quality. I want to the my consigners. I want to give them the best quality service I can. However, there are little vines that are shooting off or little sprouts that are coming up that I need to weed out. There are those that are sucking my time. And Tony Robbins, I heard this from him years ago, and it really stuck with me. And this pumpkin plan reinforced it. When you are spending your time on clients that you're not making money on, or you're spending more than 20% of your time on one person, it's not good. It's not good if they're not making you the money. They're actually taking away from your business, even though maybe you want 100 consigners, maybe you want this, but you really need to weed out the bottom ones. And I think everything we've read kind of speaks to this. Sometimes you need to fire a customer, sometimes you need to fire a consigner, and you really need to look at it through the lens of your top people deserve better from you. Every time you take somebody that is taking away from them, or you take something new on, or a bad pumpkin, it's taking away, and it's disrespectful to the people that you are providing that quality service for. And that's something I continually have to remind myself, that it's it's not a bad thing. Some people are just not a good fit, but it is disrespectful to the people that I am providing a quality service to, and it kind of gives me the okay to go ahead and let them go. I
Yeah,
know
I
you.
would say,
Yeah.
just to follow up, I would say it gives you the clarity in your business to know when to say no to new opportunities, new clients, new customers, new platforms. We
Mm-hmm.
talked quite a bit in our book club about, being resellers. There's all of these platforms you could sell on, and cross listing is such a buzzword now. And, so people have endless ideas in their head, but you need to know when to say no. And I think the pumpkin plan, going through this process, helped both of us kind of come up with, I think one of the analogies was, um, in an airplane, you have that little laminated card, the back of the seat, that tells you where the exits are and everything. And it's like a simple thing that will save you when you're in trouble. And so we kind of need to come up with that for our business, so we know this isn't what I do. So I'm going to say no. It's a no. If I'm, dealing with someone that I'm going to buy their collection, I need to have my rules in place so that I can say no when I need to say no. But and that, by saying no, you save time, which is your most precious resource in your business when you're just one person show, so that you can say yes to the opportunities. In your case, yes to the consigners that are really going to grow your pumpkin. And so that was a big one for me.
Yeah. So you actually had some, I don't know if you want to talk about it, some real life.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, you really got in there and weeded some stuff out, some inventory, some consignments. Yeah. You really did the hard work.
Yeah, it was funny. When I went back and watched our episodes, you had graded all of your consigners, and we talked a good bit about your consigners and which ones would you say yes to, which ones would you say no to. And I was trying to give you some advice, kind of be the Dr. Phil, if you will, whatever. And what was interesting was, at the time, and all through the whole book club, I never brought up this idea of me pumpkin planning my own consigners, and basically firing, if you will, all of my consigners. But when I went back and watched that exchange we had, it sort of became clear to me now, like that's basically what I was doing, was talking to myself and saying, why do I have these consigners that are not making me any money, that it takes up time in bookkeeping, that I have a terrible contract for, that I've had them for 7 years. One of them was 7 years selling this dude's stuff, and all I had left was stuff that nobody wanted. So, to fast forward for those of you who want to get to the end, at the end of 2023, I cashed all of them out. Um, I fired 4 consigners. 2 of them, I gave them all their stuff back. 2 of them, I offered them a buyout. Of the 2 that I offered the buyout, one person wrote me an email back and thanked me profusely. The second person never said a word, never an email, nothing. I sent him a big check, never heard a word. Eventually, a month later, the check was cashed. So anyways, I just uprooted these things out of my business, that I had had for years, not even realizing that they really were not helping me anymore. I had done the consignment model, but I'm just beyond that now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and of course there was, I won't go into these details, but there was one consignor who was very angry, and
Mm-hmm.
got on Facebook to tell everybody about it without using my name, but pretty much, zeroed in on it was me. But that was fine, but again, it's that uncomfortable conversation that you might have to have, saying no, in order to focus on, putting all the energy, the pumpkin analogy, the nutrients and the,
Mm-hmm.
into the soil, so that you can grow the pumpkin that matters.
Yeah. I mean, I was just all of those things like that we do because we've always done them that way, right? Like you
Yeah.
had your consigners because that's just the way you did it. And now how did it feel? Like the process was hard. I know it was hard, but how did you feel at the end of it?
Yeah, I felt so liberated. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I used to have to go back and download all of my sales and then weed out which ones were theirs. And, maybe it took me 2 or 3 hours, but, it just wasn't worth the time. It wasn't worth the effort. And, in the case of this one person who was kind of nasty at the end, he'd kind of been nasty the whole time. And so it felt very, like, when I was putting his stuff in a big giant box to ship back to him via UPS, that was very, that was a good day. I enjoyed that. Um, so, and just to finish, the other one that you were going to bring up is that I had gone through a process in my business of identifying what are the things that I have purchased when buying collections that I don't have the time, energy, or interest to actually list. And I've been able to find 2 different people that I'm now consigning with, giving them the stuff to sell. And one of those, I wrote down some quick notes, just talking about, like, how's it worked out. My
Yeah.
cousin, actually, she and I are same age, obviously close. I got her onto an eBay account that I wasn't using, and she has sold 400 items from me in the last 3 months that I would just never have touched. They were books and uniforms and just three-dimensional things that I just was like not anything I wanted to deal with. And then another one of our chats we talked about, we actually during the chat, I was in Indiana dropping off stuff to this other fellow eBay seller who was going to sell stuff for me. And he has sold, I think I wrote down here, 455 items or lots of items and generated thousands of dollars in sales. And,
Wow.
you know, it really was like, I have so much more room in my warehouse space now because I ripped these, these vines out of my business and was able to, thankfully, now this won't work for everybody, but, give them to another seller who could, on consignment, sell them for me. But, you know, again, I talked about there being kind of a time capsule of these episodes that we filmed in the book chat. Really, I can't wait till a year from now to see where things are with my business and, where these relationships I've now created with these consigners, like, or I guess they're the opposite of the consigner. I'm the consigner, but those relationships to see
They're the
where
consignee.
they're the consignee. Got to get my words
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other thing I'll say too, and I'm gonna quit talking so much, but we talked in the pumpkin plan about how the the magic of the pumpkin plan sometimes can be coming up with an idea that's completely out of left field. Like, it's not about how can I improve my flat lay surface photography and can I add, you know, can I list while I'm laying in bed or in the bathtub, that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's an idea that's completely out of left field. So this idea of like getting my cousin who lives like, another state away to take on stuff because I knew she had only had a part-time job and she had, so anyways, that's what the pumpkin plan, I think, if we're trying to sell this idea of the book or whatever, that's what it can do for you is give you a different lens to look at your business through.
Yeah, I mean, those are such amazing examples, and I think a lot of people could probably relate. And we've seen a lot of people in the mastermind actually offload some inventory to people that are growing a different pumpkin, right? Like in a
Yeah.
different niche, and kind of let go of that stuff because they realize it's just sitting there. It's taking up mental space as well as physical space. So I think a lot of people could definitely relate to that. And it's okay. It's okay to let go if it's not serving you, because sometimes there's a lot of emotion. Mostly it's emotion like tied up in these things that we're doing or hanging on to. It very rarely coincides with the numbers.
And in your case with consigners, it's relationships, it's real
Yeah.
humans,
Hmm.
and that's tough to, kind of like tell somebody you're ending a relationship.
Yeah, it is. But I think I just keep in the back of my mind every time I have to do this that even with your unhappy, let's say unhappy consigner, um, that it's showing respect to the people that are good and respect your business and provide you quality items and make you money, right? Like it's showing respect to them. Like, hey, I'm not just taking on anyone. You're special. So it is telling those other people that are good and um, match your immutable laws. I think we should get into, and we spent a lot of time, I think in my memory we've spent a lot
Mhm.
of time talking about immutable laws. I don't know in reality that you rewatched the chats. So
We did. I remember my first reaction was, what the hell is an immutable law? Uh, and then you helped me figure it out. So we got it down eventually.
So this was a real eye opener, and I kind of loved it. It was what are your like what is an immutable law? It is things that are just core to your person, core to your business, and he goes into a lot of you want to do business with people that share your immutable laws, like are trustworthy, are like in my case thrifty and sustainable. Like what are your core kind of values? And it never works out well when your customers or your consigners don't align with those immutable laws. And when you kind of thought about it, yours correlated very well to the Boy Scout laws, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
interesting. I went back. The first one you brought up in our conversations was trust, and
Hmm.
so in the Scout Law, the first Scout point of the Scout Law is trustworthy, and so basically, I want to deal with people who are trustworthy, but also the other pieces of the Scout Law, and so. And let me go back and say this about this point of immutable laws, just to help people understand a little bit more. What we came to realize in the conversation was it kind of goes to like in your gut, you are going to know that something rises to the level of an immutable law because you will be, it's like a magnets. You will be kind of be repulsed from this person or this situation, and you will stay up at night or be frustrated and blood pressure gets up. And so that happened in some different situations. And so, we kind of narrowed down, for my business, come hell or high water, these are the people I want to deal with. These are kind of like the rules that I'm going to follow. Because if I don't, then I'm just going to be frustrated with myself. And so that's kind of what an immutable law is to
Yeah,
me.
it really was. The more I thought about it, the more I thought we talk about this all the time at C chats, especially when we talk about consigners or accepting consigners. We always say, trust your gut, right? Like if you get a bad feeling off the bat, right off the bat, like go with that. Have I done that every time? No. And guess what? I've paid for it. Like every single time I didn't trust my intuition. And what I found in reading this is it all had to do with the immutable laws, right? If I didn't feel someone was trustworthy, if I felt they, didn't share my values in some way, for some reason, I could do this on a personal level, but it never really occurred to me that it had a place in business, that those were my consigners and my customers like also needed to share those immutable laws. Those, I'm just going to call them values because that's kind of what I think of them as, that share those values. I was like, you can do that in business? Like that doesn't seem very businessy, right? It doesn't seem black
Yeah.
and white.
Well,
But
the
then,
trap is that you think you're in business, so you should do business with everyone. Like
yes,
your job is to sell stuff, your job is to
yes,
consign stuff, your job is to do, and so that's where it becomes the immutable laws become a filter through which you then screen opportunities in people, and you will be much happier if you figure what those values are, as you well said. That's how I'm now looking through the lens of, and that's what helped me decide to fire these consigners. Not that one of them still isn't a friend that I see fairly often during the year, but it doesn't mean that I have to be selling his stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think it in the end it ended up giving me permission to implement this in a business sense and kind of reconcile that personal versus business. Like yes, you should be doing business with people that share your values, and it's okay to set those limitations. And yeah, I'm just putting this all kind of together in my head right now. Like I never made the
oh yeah,
correlation
yeah.
that that's what was holding me back, was that I didn't feel that my values necessarily had a place in my business. And now I can see they totally do. And every time, you follow your instinct and align yourself with people that share your values, guess what? Those are all my top producing people.
Shockingly,
Coincidence? I don't know. And quite a few of those are no longer part of the pumpkin patch. Um, and
yeah. And
guess
I don't
what?
know
They were
if
the
we
ones
want
that
to.
ranked low.
Right. And we both of us had a little bit of unfinished homework. I don't know if we want to get into that, but I know you were going to
Yeah.
maybe have a conversation with like the one person who had
Hmm.
really given you lots of good references. And
Yep.
that's one of the things I don't think we've touched on yet in reviewing the book is there's quite a bit of amount of time spent on not only identifying who your top clients are, but then getting their advice because you really want to
Hmm.
just have more of those top clients in your world in your business, and you and I both talked about doing that. So
I did start that process. Yes. So one of my top referrer, who is also a consigner, but also refers me a ton of business. I was able to speak with her, and I want to get more into detail, but I was able to sit with her and say, what is it? Why is it? Um, you refer people to me, and what am I providing? that you can't get elsewhere, because at this point there's more referrals than I can handle. What is it that I'm doing and doing well, but also what is it like, what else would you want? What else would, what can I do to strengthen the relationship? Is there something that, you think, maybe if you provided me, I don't know, quicker, this wasn't one of the things, but like quicker payouts, or better communication. That was one of them, was just better communication on intake. Like, what are the things I can improve? And I have to say, like, she was terribly impressed that I was asking that question, and I got more referrals because she felt even more comfortable. Like, yes, I know when I hand off this person to Libby, she will be taking good care of them and guiding them through the process and getting them set up. So it was I found out what I was doing well, and also what I could improve upon to service those top people better and improve my quality, which was my unique offering. So
Yeah.
I did
Think
my
about it.
homework.
Yeah. Well, and so how many people would consider their top clients to be part of their business? And in doing this pumpkin plan, you realize that this opportunity there, that you could draw so much more, you have the opportunity to grow from focusing on this one person. And, a lot of times we might look at people and just think, well, we just sell to them and,
Hmm.
whatever. But they can be an opportunity in our business if we're
Hmm.
willing to listen to them. And, the other thing I thought about with you going back listening to these was you would have these Amazon, I won't get to your business too much, but you sell some Amazon returns.
Hmm.
And so being in all these reseller groups, like Lord knows there's like a million Amazon sellers out there dealing with returns. And
Hmm.
that's when I also thought like, that's, if, thinking about a left field idea, I think that selling Amazon returns on eBay, not on Amazon, obviously, could be like another whole, business, whether for you or maybe somebody else, but
Hmm.
there's opportunities out there. You just got to spot them.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they're working, you gotta focus in on them, right?
Definitely.
So other things like, all right, so we know our top clients, we kind of figured out what our laws were and got permission, our immutable laws and permission to use those in business. And
Hmm.
the other thing we talked about was I'm going to say it wrong. Oh my gosh, what is my hang up with that word? Systemization.
Good thing we didn't have
Systemization.
a drinking game for that word.
I don't know what it is about that word. And, different things we could do to step back, or what we can hand somebody a checklist for. And, somebody else could step in if we're away, or what can we systemize? And there was very little in my business I couldn't. I think the only thing that I couldn't, I'm not saying I implemented all of it, because I haven't, but
Hmm.
when I wrote it down, the one thing that probably I should always do, and the only thing really, was the intake and the onboarding of new clients. That was the only place I felt like I was truly needed and couldn't develop a system for. So I've been working on the systems.
Yeah, you and I both have some employees now, some part-time employees,
Hmm.
and and during this whole book club, I actually hired two new people, and so it was very helpful for me to think about that in terms of systemizing what their roles were, because I didn't have any of that written down, didn't have any playbooks developed, and so and you and I, going through this too, talked about how as the business owner, we need to be focused on the really valuable parts of our business, and so like intake, as you described it, is perfect. Obviously for me, looking and evaluating collections that I'm going to buy. That's really super important. But I don't need to take pictures. I don't need to necessarily do shipping. The things that I can systematize. And so that's kind of where he goes, is like, what can someone else do without your direct involvement? Because that's
Hmm.
probably, if you're thinking about growing your business, you really got to have to do that. If you're willing to hire employees, which not everybody is for good reasons, but that would be important. Systemization.
Systemization. Even if you are, um, a solopreneur, and that's the way you want to stay. I was that way for many years, because that's the way I wanted it. And you still need to have those systems in place. You still, like, I think there's still a benefit, even if it's just you. I know Vanessa talked about in our mastermind, and I loved this idea of separating yourself as the employee and the business owner, right? Like, those are two different roles. And so you would, systemize everything with the employee you. I think it's still worth doing. And if you decide to bring somebody else on, or you have a virtual assistant, you have that ready to go. Like, hey, look, all I need to do is them this, spreadsheet, or whatever the case may be, this checklist, and that's all you need to do. And kind of separating yourself. So if you're uh, just working and it's just you at this point, I think it's still worth doing. And I love that idea of separating the two, especially if you're working alone. Think of yourself wearing two different hats.
That's a great analogy. And I'm trying to hold two thoughts here I want to get out. I'm probably going to forget one. But since you mentioned mastermind, I was going to mention Billy in yesterday's mastermind. She was talking about photography. And so
Hmm.
she sort of changed her system for taking pictures, doing that in a batch, essentially. And then that ripple effect down has really made her business be more successful because listing was a drag. Or she knows she really likes listing, but she hates photography, or whichever what it is. But that was important. Even as a solopreneur, which I think she does have one virtual assistant, that's really helpful. So, and now the other ideas already escaped my brain. I couldn't hold on to two thoughts at the same time.
Maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll come
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. Yeah. So the pumpkin plan was, a little intimidating to go into. And like we said, it was hard, and, people definitely dropped off, or maybe weren't ready to do this, or hear the hard things, or look at the hard numbers. Even that wasn't the easiest thing to do, just because sometimes we don't want to face the truth of it. Is
Yeah,
that, I
and
mean,
maybe
I
just
feel
not
that
have
way.
sometimes not having the confidence to be able to grade things,
Hmm.
and rip things out of the garden. Maybe
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
tough.
But I think absolutely, like, coming out on the other end of it, I can't wait to go back and watch the episodes, and maybe I'll wait until next year when we've had this implemented for a full year, and see all the changes. I can say, like, I feel, like I said at the beginning, like, I have the tool I need to successfully level up, and I'm not just spinning my wheels and doing busy work. Like, I have a focus. I know now way more clearly what needs to be done, very clearly. And I didn't have that. I was just keeping on doing the same things at the same level, happy in that space. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't, like, miserable with it, but I knew there was something more. And this gave me the tools to get there.
And I like, something that's often said in C chats is that, you kind of have these Libby sayings, and one of them is that people need to do things for 90 days, I think it is, to,
Hmm.
run the experiment, going back to your degree in biology. And so I think that that's kind of where I am, to be honest, is like I have implemented these changes, and I'm running the experiment, if you will, to see what it looks, if it's going to look different 90 days from now. And that was
Hmm.
something I said in Mastermind about merging these three stores together, is that for the first basically 5, 6 weeks after doing that, I didn't really see a change. I didn't really see it coming back to the sales levels of having the
Hmm.
three different pieces of my business. But in the last 2 weeks, I finally see that the pumpkin's growing. And this is,
Hmm.
it's like, I know I'm being silly about these farming analogies, but
Oh,
you
they're
water a
fun.
plant.
They're fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to plant a spring garden, by the way, so I am ready for this analogy to come to life. But you can water a plant, but it doesn't look visibly different from day to day, right?
Hmm.
And so, but if you're tracking your numbers in an eBay business or other online businesses, you can see the growth over time. And we talked about this too. I definitely believe in averages, so don't get sucked into day to day. It's more like
Mm.
week to week, month to month. So I'm really looking forward to seeing my pumpkin grow, and I'm going to keep. I think there's still parts of the book that I have not. The later chapters, you kind of get to the end. Maybe you're like, so your brain's already spinning. But I'm
Mm.
going to go back and look at some of the later chapters, and then also, like you said, revisit this a year from now to kind of see. I don't know that we have to do book club 2.0 with this book, unless you and I just want to have a conversation again, because
We'll
that's
have
kind of
to
how this
when we
came.
rewatch the videos. Well, we'll have to, because
That's
I'll
right.
notice things about your business, and you'll probably notice things about my business that we won't.
Yeah. Right, that's right. Like I said, it was a good mastermind. But you know, but that is the beauty of a book club. Just for use this opportunity to plug your C Chats book club. I think that you guys have done Profit First, which is absolutely amazing, game changing book. Right now, we're doing the Slight Edge. So Libby, right before we got on, about 20 minutes before this started, I actually got up and walked out and went up for a walk in my neighborhood, a little 5-minute walk, because I've been sitting and I was like, I really need to kind of like get my blood pumping so I have my brain
Yeah.
working for this. And so, but Slight Edge, right? That came from the book study. So I would encourage people to join the community consignment chats on Facebook. And then if you are so inclined, join these book clubs that they do probably about quarterly. Is that what it
We
turns
try
out
to
to
do
be?
them quarterly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it's all free. You just have to commit to be there and take part in the conversation.
Yeah. Or watch the videos afterward, like Pam did, and implement it all.
Yeah, it doesn't always
That
work.
works too. Yeah.
The evening hours are not good for some people, and so it's generally been 8 o'clock Eastern if you keep it that date. But for me, I've just set aside the time, and it's been a lot of fun because, also too, one of the things that in the Slight Edge they actually say is that a lot of adults after they finish high school, like some ridiculous number, never pick up a book and read a whole book again in their whole life after high school. But I think if you're a reseller, you probably have already reinvented yourself a few times because none of us went to school to become a reseller. And so you're probably a work in progress already, always making improvements. And I think that's where a book club or even mastermind, if you want to do Patreon or whatever, that can help because, I didn't get a college degree for this. I was a middle school teacher for a bunch of years. And, eBay was not one of the majors in my college. So,
I'm wondering if that's going to take off at some point, like getting a degree in reselling.
I bet there's some small college that probably already has it. My guess is, yeah.
All right. We might, I know there's one in North Carolina that teaches, they have a course about reselling. I'll have to figure it out. Paul Apollonia, if you know him, the gentleman that runs it was at one of his meetups, and it was interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. So I want to just touch on one point that you brought up, and it's so important. I can't believe I didn't even think of it. Is that time when you plant the pumpkin at that cultivation period, in Slight Edge, you call it plant, cultivate, harvest. It's that cultivation period, right? Because when you're weeding initially, it is scary, right? It is scary when you're taking out parts of your business, or putting your focus on that one. It's scary, and you need to think about that there is a period of cultivation before the changes you make, you will start to see the results in. It will be invisible at first. It may appear negative at first, but you have to just give it time. You need that cultivation time before you see the results. Don't hop in, do this, and think you're going to see results in a week, in a month. Like it very well may be like 90. I always say 90 days before before something really starts to, you start to see that little sprout, right? Of a pumpkin seed. So just really be patient with it. I would say hands down, worth it, but don't expect to measure it after a week or a month. You need to be patient and do this. I think we would all agree with that. I've implemented, Jason's implemented it, Pam has implemented it, and the results were not immediate. As Jason's already talked about, the results were not immediate for me. I mean, I'm still growing the pumpkin. And it's been about 90 days. I'm seeing some fantastic results right now, but I didn't at first, because you're taking things away. So
let me give you an example. Again, we'll plug Mike Michalowicz, right, the author of these books. He did Profit First.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention his name.
Oh yeah, that guy. He's got a new book out. I'm not going to plug his book. But here's a funny thing talking about in the Slight Edge, they talk about the compound effect, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think this is kind of tags onto what you're saying. And so just yesterday, I figured out that in implementing Profit First, it was 2 years ago this month that I started a investment account where I was taking money monthly from my business, my profit, if you will, and putting it into an investment account. And now, 2 years later, Libby, I can see what that account has grown to. Now it's helped that the stock market's done a little better here recently, but it's very satisfying. But it's 2 years of compound interest working for me and 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of doing that. So absolutely, you're totally right. Cultivate. A farmer doesn't grow a pumpkin or whatever plant quickly. All these things take time. We've talked about being on health journeys where we lost weight or something,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't happen overnight. I know in the Slight Edge, he talks about, I think it's quantum leap is the way he describes it. This is why
Mm,
lottery ticket winners are pretty much doomed,
right.
because we overnight success, this not how, it's not going to work. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I have to just note here, we had a little disagreement about the pumpkin plan and how it played into the Slight Edge.
yeah,
um,
right.
or whether they were contradictory. What are you thinking now? I thought they went hands in hand because I was so excited that the pumpkin plan gave me my focus, and then I felt like the Slight Edge is giving me the tools to implement it. And you felt that you had weeded everything out, and now you had wasn't sure how the Slight Edge played into that. So I'm curious where you are now in that thought
Yeah.
process.
Well, I will say just in listening to you explain it, where you talked about it gives you the focus, and then the Slight Edge kind of gives you the tools. I'm gonna say that you win this argument because I definitely 100% agree with that. Um, to defend myself, where I was coming from when we were doing the other book club was I felt like the pumpkin plan was more of a sort of a violent, tourniquet
Hmm.
ripping of things out of the pumpkin patch like I had done in some cases. And I thought the Slight Edge, which another great book, was so much like slight. Can't use the word slight in your answer, but like very slow
Gradual.
changes, gradual. And I thought the pumpkin plan was more like making a 90-degree turn is how I kind of felt. But I think that, like you just said, to implement the pumpkin plan, you are going to have to use the Slight Edge, and that's where I think they marry up really well. The focus, like you described it.
Yeah. All right. So I think you win because I totally see like where you're coming from, like different lenses, right?
Different
We're
lenses.
looking at it from totally different. I see like the pumpkin plan is very abrupt. Just do it, get it done, weed that pumpkin patch. And so I see that as well. I don't know. I think we're both right. How's that? Just
Yeah,
different
that's good. No,
lenses.
and the other thing, I come back to this thing about lenses, that was a organic word that came up in one of our book club nights, we kept using it over and over. But I think that's where it helps having another person to go on this journey with you, another
Hmm.
person who doesn't live in your house,
Yeah.
because they will automatically have a different lens that they can look through your business. And it's probably hard to find that person that you trust and value, but maybe you have
Hmm.
someone in your life, or in one of these Facebook groups, you find
Yeah.
somebody, however that works. So it's been really helpful for me. I will, thank you for going on this journey with me, and look forward to more book clubs in the future.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking with it. Yes. We were on that ledge at the end.
That could have been a solo episode. You could have done by yourself. I guess it wouldn't have been as interesting.
And I would have totally done it. Because I feel that, I mean, that's one of the things we talk about in the Slight Edge, our current book that we do the first quarter of every year because it's that impactful. And every year we look at it with a different lens. But I would stand out on that ledge alone and record and do the book club because I feel that it's that important. So yeah. But I'm glad that you're standing there as well. Thank
Well,
you.
that's one of the
All
things he
right.
talks about in the
Good.
Slight Edge is, if you read 10 pages of a good book every night, by the end of the year, you'll have read, what does it say, 10 or 30 books or whatever it is. Um,
Yeah.
so you're even just for the book club, that's 4 great books that I'm going to read, you're going to read, other people are going to read in a year. And I just go back to what we said already about none of us, probably got MBAs before we decided to become resellers.
Yeah,
So we're all learning on the fly.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so much more fun to do it together.
Right, right.
All right. Do you have a cup near you? We always end with the cheers.
Oh yeah, I've got a big old giant water bottle here. I can.
All right, good. All right. Ready?
All right, in
Cheers.
honor of Molly,
Oh yeah,
cheers.
cheers. Thanks for joining Libby, Molly, and Samantha, the ladies of Consignment Chats, as we build a resourceful community of collaborative resellers. Find all the ways to connect with us on consignmentchats.com. Episodes are available on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. In addition, join our free private Facebook community.